Get ready for the season finale of Hosts at Home. On today's show, a man who's hosted a ton of shows, a man who's produced a ton of shows. From Funhouse to The Biggest Loser, we're doing a deep dive with J.D. Roth. And now, here's your host, who interviews the host, Adam Wurtzel.
Thank you, Richard. Hey, everybody. I'm Adam Wurtzel. Welcome to our big season finale of Hosts at Home. Still the show that chats with your favorite hosts, past and present. And I said it's a big season finale, so it would be only fitting that we would chat with the man that brought The Biggest Loser to your screens. He also happens to have hosted several different shows that I grew up with. You probably did, too. He's the guy that puts the fun in Funhouse. He still is. J.D. Roth, nice to see you.
You're stressing me out, man. The finale, it's like I feel like I have to have something really, really powerful to say.
The stage is yours.
That's a lot of pressure, man.
Well, we'll start with the easy questions. Tell us, the show's called Hosts at Home. This is, I will say, sorry to all the other amazing hosts that we've interviewed. This is the best view that we've ever had on the show. Tell us where we are right now.
Well, the good news is we definitely don't take the view for granted. We eat out here most nights together as a family, which is awesome and have for a lot of years. But we're in Manhattan Beach. And yeah, it's very peaceful. It's sort of like vacation living. And growing up in New York, back east, and you know what I mean, thinking you come out here, well, when you come out here, you got to live at the beach, right? You know what I mean? But honestly, riding my bike when I was younger through this area, I used to look up at the houses and think, oh man, one day it would be so cool. Never thinking it would actually happen.
And here you are today.
Yeah.
What a great success story, which we're going to talk about. But I have to ask, where in New York are you from?
So originally I grew up outside of Philly.
Okay.
My wife's from Long Island.
Me too.
And, oh, yeah? Oh,
Levittown, New York. Hello.
I know it well.
Where's she from?
She's from Smithtown.
Smithtown.
Pretty far out on the island. And I would grow up going into New York. I was a child actor. So, you know, as a kid, I spent more time in New York than I did anywhere else. So for me, going home is going back to the city. Going home, like where I was on the weekends, I wouldn't even know how to find my way around. So it's been such a big part of my life. I consider myself, like, at my core, a New Yorker, you know, but I've definitely gotten soft living out here.
I think everybody would definitely feel the exact same way. Before we talk about this incredible TV career that you have, what were you watching on TV growing up that made you want to say, I want to be in this business, I want to be a host, I want to be an actor?
So I've wanted to be on television since, I don't know, my parents joke it was like mom, dad, TV were the first three words I said. I don't know how true it is, but I've always wanted to be on television. I remember as a kid, like, climbing behind the TV to try to figure out, like, how did the people get, like, there was no information back then. It's like, how did they get in that box? Where are they right now, and how can I be there? And I used to roll up the TV guide and interview the mailman and interview anyone who came to the door. And as my parents would play the game on a game show, I would be doing the host copy. It felt so repetitive to me. It was the same lines over and over again that by, you know, you watch it a couple weeks, I knew exactly what they were gonna say next. So I don't know if it was destined to be, but it was certainly a goal of mine at a young age.
That is amazing. I want to talk about, before we talk about your Funhouse and your incredible hosting career, in the 80s, before any of that, Charles in Charge, The Twilight Zone, The Equalizer. I mean, these are big shows, JD.
Yeah, they were really fun. I actually thought I was going to be an actor. It turns out, like, I definitely was nowhere near as talented to become an actor as people that I know and that are in the business. I have my heart set on it, and you never know where your career is going to go. You have to leave yourself open for what presents itself. But yeah, I did a lot of great guest starring roles back in the day. Certainly the Twilight Zone was a great one. The Equalizer with Ed Woodward. I mean, you're talking about like some
legends. Yeah,
legends. And to be able to be in like next to those legends was such a great learning example for me.
If you grew up when I did, you had to grow up with Funhouse.
Hey guys, welcome to Funhouse.
Iconic. I mean, there's so many words to describe it. Iconic is one of them. How did you get the job hosting this game show?
So I audition for things all the time, you know, for guest starring roles, series roles, you know, all sorts of stuff. And it was an audition. I got into USC. And so I basically came out with a duffel bag and a $100 bill kind of moment. And I was like, okay, I get an agent. My New York agent connected me with an LA agent. Before you know it, I was going on auditions. So from my dorm room, between classes, I would go on auditions. I went on the Funhouse audition. 7 callbacks later. 7. Came down to like me and another guy, and we went in, and I thought, I needed a tagline. You know what I mean? Like I just needed that one line that you remember. All the game shows, you know, whether it was 2 and 2, you know, with Chuck or like whoever it was, they always had like their thing. I'm like, I gotta come, and I stayed up late the night before the final audition. I would get to the final audition hours before so I could park in the same spot. I would wait until someone would pull out of the spot. That's how superstitious I was about getting this job. I wanted it bad. And so I want to make your house a fun house was my line.
I'm JD Roth, hoping we made your house a fun house. I'm JD Roth, hope your house is a fun house.
I am JD Roth, hope your house is a fun house.
And I had never ended any of the other callbacks with that. And this callback said, I hope to make your house a fun house. And I ended it, and that ended up being the line, you know, which carried over for, I don't know, whatever it was, 400 episodes.
And not just on the, I think the UK version used it too.
They did, yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
At what point did you know that this show is a massive success?
Well, you know, you're living in the dorm room at USC. You're trying to go to like sorority parties. You know what I mean? Like, it was supposed to be 22 episodes. I'm like, no joke. We're like a month in. It's the #1 kid show in America. And I get a phone call that they're picking up 195 episodes. And I go from my dorm room at USC to the cover of Teen Beat magazine in like a couple months. You know, I would go to the mall and have to be taken out by security. Back in those days, like that was the norm of what went on because they had no access to you. So when you showed up, man, everyone came, you know? And so my life really did change almost overnight.
And everybody wanted to be on Funhouse. It wasn't just contestants. You had celebrities on the show, including Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, I remember to this day, it's been a lot of years, I remember standing next to Leo and, you know, he was just getting started and he's like, he looked up at me, he's like, do we really have to get messy? And I was like, yeah, man.
Kind of the
you
point
really
of the
do.
show.
Yeah, he's like, all right. And he went for it. He's the nicest kid ever.
There were other kids' game shows around that time, but I think the big two, the only two that people really watched repetitively was you and Double Dare. So we got to ask about, there was kind of like a little rivalry. I think Double Dare made fun of Funhouse. I don't know if you ever reciprocated on that end, but nowadays, you're a big producer in this world. Mark Summers is a big producer. Is there really a rivalry, or is that kind of...
I mean, look, back in those days, my technique was always to just act like there was no one else there. You do you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how I grew up. Like, you do you and let everyone else do them, you know? So I didn't engage in any of that. I knew Mark, obviously, you know, pretty well. He reached out to me early on. He was much older than I was. I can say that because, I mean, it's true. And so it wasn't like we were of the age where we would hang out or anything like that. But I have mad respect, you know, for him and what he's done in his career. And, you know, I look at it like the waves. When you're out there surfing and someone takes away from you, a lot of guys get angry. First thought pops into my head is, there's enough waves for everybody. You know, and I really thought that my whole career. There are enough waves for everyone. There's enough to go around, you should share. And so I've never really been, I'm very competitive, but I've never been that kind of guy in that way.
We've done a lot of these shows. I don't think we've ever done one where people are going to watch this and be as inspired as they are with the things that you say. Thank you. So thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
After Funhouse wraps, 3 seasons of Funhouse. 3 seasons, correct?
I think we did 4. We did 3 seasons and then one final short season on Fox. It was like a 22 episode kind of thing. I think. I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
I'm sure there will be people.
I'm sure you did your research.
I did my research.
Yeah, you might know
I did my
more than
research. You quickly fall into this other show, this one about video games. Tell us about GamePro TV.
Yeah, so GamePro and then Masters of the Maze is sort of another video game type thing. I love video games. At the time, I had a top 10 score in Game Boy Tetris in the country, which I still enjoy playing. So I loved video games, and so it wasn't a big stretch for me to reach out to GamePro and say, hey, I'm a fan. Like, how can I get involved? Not knowing what it was going to turn into. But I did understand that being on camera wasn't something that could last a lifetime, and that you really have to use what cards you have in the deck and smart. So I thought, well, I got to start coming up with shows, because if I start coming up with shows, then I could produce them. And if you produce them and you own them, and that's a great way to give yourself work.
Wow.
So that was kind of the thought. I was young, though. I was 20, 21 years old. So I was still learning quite a bit.
And one of those shows at 20, 21, at such a young age, there's nobody else that hosted and EP'd a game show at your age, and for NBC, and that was a show called Double Up.
Yeah, that's an interesting story, right? Because Saturday morning was Saved by the Bell and we were wedged right in the middle of these successful shows. And it was just a game I came up with, which is basically a brother and a sister come on, and the brother picks the sister's date blindly, and the sister picks the brother's date. But we had contestants on that show that people are not aware of, like Brittany Murphy was a contestant.
Really?
Yes, Jennifer Love Hewitt was a contestant. Wow. So they were in the same episode together. And these were like super dynamic young teens, great energy. Yeah, I remember years later making a DVD and putting it in Jennifer Love Hewitt's dressing room when she was about to go on Jay Leno. Years later, and she got a kick out of watching the old episode.
That's wild. You've worked with some incredible people on game shows, on reality shows, on so many different types of programming, and one of them who I had the honor of working with as well was Dick Clark.
Yes.
Talk about Dick Clark. You worked on Mad Libs with him and many other things.
What's there to say? It's rarefied air. You know what I mean? He's he the nicest compliment ever that he gave me was, "I hear you're the next me." It turned out it was Ryan who was the next him, but okay. Like, it was super nice to hear at the time. I just tried to soak up every moment I could with him. This guy worked from the second he left his house. I don't know if anyone knows this, but he had a van. And this is old school. In the van, he had the desk, and it was like screwed into the ground, all cleared out with a special chair. And he had a phone that was like locked onto the table. And he worked from the second till the second he went to bed. And he was a super dynamic, really smart. And he would tell me all the time, "Hey man, I think what he said, you can't be a meat puppet forever." He's like, "You got to understand that's called show business, and so it's a 360. Don't just host. Come up with the ideas. Be creative, And he really supported me.
Well, one of the shows that you hosted that I have to ask you about, my wife and I are big Disney people. We got married in Epcot.
Oh my
so
gosh.
I must ask you about your time hosting Inside Out.
It was incredible. Think about it. Like, once a month, they ask you what resort you want to stay in. If you want to bring anyone, they put you in a gigantic room, and you get to spend a week at Disney seeing all the stuff that nobody else can see. And then, as a bonus, I end up getting to host the Christmas parade, the Easter parade with Regis, and going to dinner with him and his wife. I mean, it's like, these are unthinkable scenarios for somebody like me. And I really soaked up every minute.
How did you find time in the 90s with all of this stuff, the hosting, the producing? How did you find time to voice Johnny Quest?
Now, how are we going to climb that?
So I've been a voiceover actor since I was a kid. So being a voice actor was always kind of a thing for me. I also grew up watching Johnny Quest. So when the audition came out and they were like, "For the voice of Johnny," and George Siegel plays my dad.
Wow.
Like Robert Patrick plays Race Bannon. You're like and the Terminator had just come out. So it's like that look that he had, which you'd just be scared, just doing the voiceover. So we did 65 episodes. We would do like one episode a week for like 30 weeks a year. And just watching George Siegel do his thing, at the time he hadn't made his comeback, but he's a legend. So just standing the mic next to him was just an incredible experience. I'm so lucky.
Wow. One of the shows, it's like a timeline of your career. I hope you're enjoying this, JD. One of the shows that you hosted well over a decade after starting Funhouse was a show called Sex Wars. It was not about sex. It was a battle of the sexes. Right. But it was your first non-kids game show. You kind of changed your look a little bit. Was that on purpose?
Yeah, that was a character, right? I'm not like the edgy guy. And I actually did the pilot of that show with Jen, who was the host, who's lovely and smart and like so much more than what that show was. We did it together, and it was a very cordial brother-sister kind of vibe. I was, married, and my wife was pregnant when I started the show, and I was a family guy. You know what I mean? And it came back that they wanted somebody much edgier and much more fitting the tone of that show. And so I had to make a decision. Like at that point, again, 200 episodes of a show. Do I have it in me to do that without sacrificing who I am and take it right to the line? And Jen and I had really good rapport with each other and a really good friendship. And so, yeah, that one was fun.
As we make our way into the early 2000s, you created a lot of beach theme shows going on. First, you created Moolah Beach, which then sort of became Endurance.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? I love the beach, first of all. And
As we can clearly see in this beautiful
view.
But
more of it is really about inspiring kids to understand that, like, When you strip away the phones and the mall and your parents and your friends, and you're only left with yourself, what goes around comes around, you know? And to understand that like your actions have a reaction, and the energy you put out in the world is the energy you get back. So Moolah Beach was the first iteration of that with Fox, where it gave me an opportunity to bring kids out there and in their mistakes, teach. And then after that went off the air, my partner Todd Nelson and I thought, you know, it's got to be another iteration. I thought, not many kids understand what it takes to make it in the world. You know that finding endurance inside yourself is hard to find if you've never found it before. So what if you could help them find it like a muscle that they could flex and get the repetitions in, so in life when they need it, they have a place to go, that muscle memory to go.
And you're back on Saturday morning on NBC.
Back on Saturday morning, and I will say that endurance was, if I had to put like the old like top 3 or top 5 shows of all time, certainly that I hosted, it's 100% in the top 3.
And we can't interview you, JD, without talking about The Biggest Loser.
Yeah.
And this is not just a show that's changing the contestants' lives. This is changing viewers' lives as well.
Yeah, I would say it was such an interesting change of events, you know, because in the beginning, TV is about wish fulfillment. It's about beautiful people doing amazing things in perfect locations. It's not really about someone suffering or overweight or exposing a pain no one wants to talk about. Biggest Loser provided an opportunity to have a loving conversation in an experience like that to help somebody make a change in their life. I am so much more proud of that than ratings, seasons, you know, countries that the show aired in. It's that it changed the conversation at the dinner table, which I think is a very powerful outcome. You know, the reality television world in 2003, 2004 was sort of a gotcha kind of TV moments. And so it was tricky to find a show that could treat them like Olympic heroes and still get great drama. But when you ask a grown man how he feels on the very first day and why he's overweight, and within a matter of seconds, this grown man is absolutely bawling and crying, I realized that weight loss is not what the doctors say. The doctors will tell you it's calories in versus calories out. You get a deficit, you lose weight. And what I found out is no one is hungry enough to eat themselves to 400 pounds, but what you perceive as hunger pain is really emotional pain. And once I made that shift of like, wait a second, no one's dealing with these people's emotional reasons for eating. Once you do that, you just have to get out of the way, and these people do it themselves.
I'm going to flip the question about life changing on its head. How has The Biggest Loser changed your life?
Well, it unleashed a beast inside of me that I didn't know was there at the time. I mean, I've been a thin, fit person my whole life. I looked at the person, you know, shoveling ice cream in their mouth that was 300 pounds the same way everybody did. You know what I mean? Oh, they're lifting the spoon up to their mouth. What's their problem? You know what I mean? And it really opened my eyes to understand that there's a systemic problem worldwide. It's why people are eating. They're not eating because it tastes good. They're eating because of these emotional issues. And they shouldn't be made fun of that they don't have the toolbox to deal with it. Like, for instance, your parents could be divorced and you were young, 10 to 11 years old, and life went on. But for some people, their parents got divorced. You can literally look at the picture the year before and the year after, and there's a dramatic change in their physical attributes of being overweight. So why is that? They just didn't have the emotional bandwidth to be able to handle or manage all the information that they were trying to process. And so I try to give them a way to process that information and then give them the tools to change it. There's no easy way out in life. Nobody's coming to rescue you. I tell my boys that all the time. Hey, like, you got to figure your stuff out. No one is going to come bail you out. And that's for anything in life.
JD, that sound that you just heard magically here on the beach means it is time for the lightning round. This is very easy.
I'm a better host than a contestant, so I don't know how this is going to go. So we'll see.
Stage is yours. Well, this is the greatest thing because it's just all about you here, JD. I'm going to name a TV show that you were involved in. Maybe you hosted it, maybe you produced it, maybe you were in it somehow. You just have to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind, whether it's a story, an anecdote, anything. Are you ready?
Yes.
The lightning round starts now. Melrose Place.
Embarrassing.
Masters of the Maze.
I would say an incredible time of early technology that I didn't even know existed. So I enjoyed that one.
Power Sticks, right?
Yeah.
Animal Planet Zoo Venture.
Loved Zoo Venture, loved, what do they tell you? Never work outside with animals and kids. And that show had all three, and it was a blast.
That's so cool. Unanimous.
Unanimous, as a lot of people refer to. Unbelievable underground bunker that really was an underground bunker. And what I learned from that the most was, if you can convince someone they're in a place with a complete loss of time, these people that nobody realized, they would go to sleep thinking they slept the whole night, and they would only sleep maybe 20 minutes. And so you almost like an animal in a trap, like you could literally change their clock without them even knowing it. That was real.
Wow. How about Opposite Worlds?
Opposite Worlds in New Orleans, we built an entire world outside in the middle of a field in New Orleans. So beignets is all I can think of on that one.
My Cat from Hell.
Actually, it was Jackson Galaxy is an amazing guy. Met him in the Beach Reporter. This beach where I live has a free newspaper. In it was an ad with him. And it said, cat behavioralist. And we ripped it out and we were like, cat, what is that? And it ended up turning into 9 seasons and a worldwide hit.
Last one. This is going back a little bit. Children's Island.
Children's Island, I actually looked at those pictures recently because it was made in South Africa in the early 80s, which anyone who knows what was going on in South Africa in the early 80s, it was scary. And so I got to, as a high school freshman, go to South Africa for 6 months and work with George Montgomery, who was like a huge Western star, you know, back in the day, and lived in kind of John Wayne's shadow. So I still look back on that as the first time I ever left the country, and I would still like to go back there.
It seems like throughout your whole career you've been on islands with kids.
You know, you're good. I never thought of that, but it's a really good point. That is a theme, isn't it?
There's a theme to this interview and to your career, JD. I want to talk about everything, all the great stuff you're doing now with Good Story Entertainment, because you're working with Demi Lovato, you're working with so many great people, Ariana Grande. Tell us about this company and all the great shows you have.
Yeah, you know, the idea was at the end of 3-Ball, you know, we had 16 production companies around the world, and there were thousands of employees and tons of shows, and sometimes as a creative person, you start to feel like you have a finger in all and a hand in none. And I really wanted to get back to being in the field and working with contestants and coming up that scary blank sheet of white paper and coming up with an idea and then like realizing this could be something and then trying to take it all the way from start to finish. So I have started almost every pitch in my career with leaning into the buyer and saying, I got a good story for you. And so that's why the company is called Good Story Entertainment. I partnered with a guy named Adam Greener, who had been at 3-Ball for 15 years with me, and was kind of one of my right-hand guys when it came to creative. And yeah, we're back in it. We have a show on Netflix called Metal Shop Masters, which is awesome. We have the largest order in history on Snapchat, a show called Lago Vista. We did a show with Ariana. We did the Chasing Alien show with Demi was amazing. She's amazing. She's so passionate about the subject and such a believer that to wake up every day and see how excited she was to go figure out like the undiscovered. And I will tell you, like, I'm not a believer at all, but there's definitely stuff that happened out there that I can't explain. So I don't know what to make of it. You know what I mean? I'm a heavy skeptic whose mind was kind of blown throughout the process.
Last question, JD. Are you ready?
Yes.
Can you still skateboard?
Yes, I have a wall of skateboards about 20 feet from here. There's maybe 8 or 9, including the original deck that I had when I was a kid. And about, I'd say 2 or 3 nights a week, right as the sun's going down, I'll skate down about a mile and skate back. And there's just something very freeing about being on that skateboard that it just brings me back to when I was a kid that I don't think I could ever, you know, describe. And I'm sure, like, I'm in my mid-50s now, so I'm sure people look at me and like, what's that old guy doing on that skateboard? But it gives me so much joy, so I just kind of look away and do my thing.
JD, this has been so much fun having you on the show. And a little tease, folks, this is not it with JD. We have more with JD coming soon, but that's all we're going to say for now. For now, this has been the season finale of Host at Home. If you like what you see, please hit subscribe now. We greatly appreciate it. JD, we had so much fun. Thank you for all the lessons and everything you've taught us over the years and still are.
Well, you're a great host. You didn't look down at those cards once. I'm very impressed. You're prepared. You did a really good job.
It's more for show. For Richard Malmus, our entire team, my name is Adam Wurtzel. I don't close the show. You should know that by now. JD, end this season. Take us out.
I mean, really, there's only one way to end it, which is I hope your house is a fun house.